Ah, the great game of golf. The sport of kings, or so some say. Come on, let's be real here. There's nothing, absolutely nothing regal or fancy about chasing after this stupid little white ball, for hours on end and just being frustrated, right? That is why true connoisseurs of the game know that mini golf is really where it's at. After all, why spend time stuck on the Windows XP wallpaper? Ugh. Windows. Why give life to such a nightmare when you can put your way through a windmill, a haunted graveyard, or even goddamn asteroids in space? That's why mini golf is superior to golf. And Walkabout Mini-Golf, a mini golf virtual reality experience, is the natural, technological next step in this evolution. Hey, my name is Diego. I am a XR product manager, and my channel, Hololinked, is all about business, technology, and design in the XR industry. Walkabout Mini-Golf, which I'll refer to simply as Walkabout from this point forward, is a huge cross-platform VR success story. And today I'll be doing a product analysis of Walkabout to understand what makes it so great. We'll start with something the Walkabout developers proudly shared with us recently, and that is that half of Walkabout's Quest users play the game straight until the battery runs out. That's very impressive, but not very surprising. As we'll be discussing, Walkabout is designed to be extremely accessible, and it not only accurately captures so many of the things that makes IRL mini-golf such an enjoyable experience, but it elevates these qualities to stratospheric heights by leveraging the strengths of virtual reality. Just imagine how hard it would be to build mini-golf courses like this IRL. Imagine the amount of engineering, the space, the money, the maintenance, the queues. Would you still be able to call it mini? Some holes or even entire courses would be outright impossible. And that's perfect, because the biggest strength of VR is to escape the limitations of things like money, logistics, and physics, so that the impractical and the impossible can become a reality. But let's look even beyond that, because while there are a lot of experiences out there that do an okay job when it comes to enabling such realities, there is one particular strength of virtual reality that other experiences never manage to get right, but Walkabout does. The social aspect. And that's where we begin. And when I say begin, what I really mean is that, well, strap on your seatbelt, because we're going back to the beginning. At the end of the 1980s, some of the first commercially available, digitally driven, stereoscopic 3D VR systems started to surface. And in 1989, VPL Research showcased and started to sell the RB2 system, Reality Built for Two. It was the first time that two people were connected together in the same virtual reality experience. At the time, this was not only a technological breakthrough, but also a revelation. While the low poly, low resolution virtual reality systems of the time,
space, the final frontier.
Well, low FPS, low everything really, with the exception of the price. The price was definitely not low. These systems cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. But yeah, while a lot of virtual reality at the time felt like empty, dead, low-fidelity echo chambers, which not only made users feel isolated in terms of their senses, but also socially and emotionally isolated, lonely, depressed. While that was the case, once Player 2 was introduced, all of that changed.
And then we networked two people together for the first time so that each could look at the other. And that was incredible. You know, when you look at another person inside virtual reality, they have an extraordinary presence, even though the body can't be their original body. It's some virtual puppet, essentially, that they made up. But the motion carries the subtle communicative body music of that person, and so the presence is extraordinary combined with their voice.
I mean, virtual reality still didn't take off, but the thing the pioneers at the time realized is that this is what is important. It's not the graphics, it's not, you know, whether you have a glove that you can wear. It's not about these things. It's about the emotional connection. That having another person there breathed life into the experience. Look, the point is that the social side of VR is extremely important. And fast forward to today, and well, now there's like, what do you call it?
A megapint.
Yes, precisely. There's a megapint worth of VR social apps out there. Some target business and education, while others are just about as laid back and alternative as can be, really. The self-touted meta apps. Well, unlike these other apps, Walkabout does not sell itself as a social app. But the one big specific reason why socialization works so well in Walkabout is because socializing in Walkabout is similar to how people socialize in real life. Let me explain. If you've ever been in a Zoom meeting that despite having 15 people on it, there were really only 2 or 3 people that actually talked most of the time, it's because when it comes to these digital experiences, it's really easy to take up all the air in the room. If that happened in real life, it would be as though everyone were arranged in one giant circle facing each other. Picture that, that's super weird. Everyone participates in the same conversation, even though only a few can talk at any given time. The user experience is bottlenecked and not optimized. In real life, this doesn't happen because people naturally form small groups and then they move around between those groups constantly, so that at any given time, there are dynamic conversations happening in parallel and people as well as topics can float and spread between the different groups. It's a very complex, albeit very natural phenomenon. I mean, it's very natural for some people more than others, no doubt. And while the three-dimensional spatial quality of VR obviously has what it takes to solve that issue, Walkabout systematizes it so that there is a constant, natural rotation of people that follow the pacing of gameplay. So the first thing that Walkabout does is, well, you can't have more than 8 people in a session. And that is because, well, it's optimized for social interaction. Secondly, with only one player being able to make their play at any given time, the remaining players can step back, relax, and chat. And once the play is made, the group will say a very momentary goodbye to one of its members, while at the same time someone else is welcomed back into the fold. Now, it should go without saying that I'm exaggerating here just to make the example more pronounced, but even though this happens only for a brief moment, or sometimes not at all if someone can multitask their shot, or if everyone is paying attention to the current play and the play is part of the conversation, like there's a bunch of things that could happen, but it's enough of a disruption and constant enough of a disruption that it helps to keep things flowing. And okay, it's not completely fair to say that it's a Walkabout thing, because that whole rotation is just, well, it's how golf works. But the right atmosphere has been captured here, and the pacing has been optimized so that not only can the phenomenon still exist in VR, but arguably it's been enhanced. This is why a lot of institutions are now using Walkabout for productivity, for meetings, for collaboration. The developers of Walkabout themselves use it as a meeting space, like for actual work. They even have a custom build that allows an infinite number of players to join a session. And let's remember that golf has traditionally and notoriously been used in this way, with many business decisions and deals often being struck on the course. But absolutely nobody can deny that it's way more fun to do such important business deals and decisions when you're upside down in upside town.
Okay then, let's talk some more about the developer.
Mighty Coconut, the studio that makes Walkabout, apparently, well, they weren't going to make it a multiplayer experience. Luckily for all of us, that changed at some point. What a mistake that would have been, and be it by design or by luck, Mighty Coconut has made a lot of right decisions. For instance, a lot of people comment on how impressive Walkabout's consistency is between the platforms, and there's a reason for that. And that is that they initially built Walkabout for the Quest 2 and only later expanded support for PC VR. It's always easier to add things to more capable platforms than it is to try to remove things and optimize until a lesser platform is able to run whatever it is that you have already built. I've talked to devs who've made that mistake, and what ends up happening is that they end up with two almost completely separate versions of the software instead of just one version that incrementally adds things depending on the performance headroom that is available.
Alright, enough of that. Now let's move on to gameplay.
Now, golf's core gameplay is pretty simple, right? You hit the ball with the stick as few times as possible until the ball enters the hole. Golf, as I see it, is a game primarily about precision. And it's because it's so simple, so concentrated on that one single action, that it needs to be well represented in virtual reality. It needs to feel substantially precise. And in Walkabout, it does feel really precise about 85% of the time, which is not only enough, but it's very impressive for VR, especially given the limitations of current day hardware. The fact that golf's core gameplay is so simple means that this experience has a very small learning curve. And the learning curve doesn't only scale really well, it stretches. Even a new player can make some really good plays on holes that more experienced players may struggle with.
That's what she said.
And that could be because they get lucky, or because they just visualize a unique, creative way to tackle a hole that others just don't. It's a game that's very easy to pick up, a game where it's possible to wing it, and ultimately a game that is very hard to master. Walkabout has a very high skill ceiling, again, because golf has a very high skill ceiling. In Walkabout, the holes are creative, and they allow you to be creative. And while the game is tremendously fun regardless of skill, a high skill ceiling means that it can stay fun for a very, very long time. But yeah, as mentioned before, you don't really need skill to make incredible hole-in-one shots. Whether your carefully planned play successfully fails or you just decide to fuck it and get lucky, there's just the right amount of unpredictability to keep players curious and hopeful about how their next shot will turn out. Not only that, the developers have wisely added features that make doing these kinds of trick shots even more interesting than doing a trick shot in real life, because you can actually replay it as many times as you want for all of your group to see. Think about that. Whenever you get a trick shot in some other game, as amazing as it may have been, it's not really easy to show your friends, so it might as well not even have happened. And in Walkabout you can. With a single press of a button, you can replay your last shot over and over for as long as you like, for all to see, with 6 degrees of freedom. freedom. That makes me think of the next thing that I want to discuss. It's a very important topic. We're gonna talk about accessibility. There's a lot of people out there that don't have the space that SteamVR requires as a minimum play area. 2 meters by 1.5 meters? Well, it's not a very large space, but then again, we don't live in very large homes these days now, do we? So, what do? Well, instead, they learn to go through experiences without having to move much and always trying to maintain an awareness of their surroundings. It fucking sucks. But even for those who are very careful, it's inevitable. Furniture will be hit. And when furniture is hit, it doesn't matter how compelling the experience is, how good the graphics are, striking furniture is an immersion breaking event. Potentially a controller breaking event. In Walkabout though, this is not an issue because very little physical movement is required in the first place, and even when you find it necessary to reposition yourself physically to get that perfect shot, there's no time pressure. You can check your surroundings using that free hand to easily locate yourself and find the best position for your shot. Oh, yeah, that's right. You have a free hand. I actually took way longer than I like to admit to realize this experience is meant to work with a single controller. Help me feel better by letting me know in the comments if you did too. But yeah, you just need the hand that you like to hold your putter with. And this is yet another thing that is very unique to this experience. In fact, I can't think of any other VR experience where you only need one controller.
But if you can, let me know down in the comments.
There definitely should be more experiences that function with just one controller because this is a major point of concern when it comes to accessibility. And folks, let's just make a quick comment on the matter of accessibility here. Accessibility is not just about people with disabilities. Accessibility is about being able to accommodate not just limitations, but also sensibilities. And that's whether they be fully or only partially restrictive, permanent or occasional, sometimes situational, whatever it may be. It's a sign of good design. The fact that you only need one controller to play Walkabout, for instance, doesn't only allow people that only have one arm to be able to enjoy the full experience and play it competitively, it allows for people who have 2 arms to do all of that and then drink, eat, pet their dog, feel around the room to understand where they are in physical space, more easily put their headset on and take it off, pet their dog. And all of that complements the social side of Walkabout that we have already talked about so much. It's genius. Let's not forget that food and drinks are a big part of IRL mini-golf, and this accessibility feature allows for that part of the IRL experience to still exist and persist in some way in VR. Even more importantly, and I can't believe I almost forgot to mention this, and the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to accessibility is the fact that this is a cross-platform experience. Now, I'm sure that I don't need to expand much on this, but the fact that people with vastly different systems and different preferences, different expectations and different limitations, financial or otherwise, can not only enjoy the experience, but enjoy it together in a consistent way is tremendously significant. Not just when it comes to a product, but especially for the still blossoming XR industry. Okay, that's it in terms of accessibility. Let's move on to the next topic, and that is graphics. Walkabout has a visual style that is beautiful, but not overstimulating. And who would want this to be a photorealistic experience anyway? This is Mini-Golf, And not only that, this is impossible. Candyland under the sea mini-golf. Mini-golf is supposed to be laid back, and Walkabout's visual style really helps to keep the mood relaxed and fun. It also positively impacts gameplay because it means that the ball can bounce off every single object in a fairly predictable manner, and thus every object can potentially be incorporated into some elaborate strategy. Not to mention, of course, the performance and operational benefits that the low poly style allows for. Walkabout's senior art director Don Carson has talked about how Walkabout's art style is a big benefit when it comes to licensing IPs, such as what they have done for Labyrinth, Myst, and 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea. To paraphrase what he said, it's a great benefit that companies that own the IP don't need to worry about the developers of Mighty Coconut having to stick to the IP's precise visual identity. The IP owners know that there is going to be a reinterpretation of sorts of the IP, and it just makes the whole process a whole lot easier for everyone involved, with resources being poured straight into the quality of the end user experience and not some bureaucratic graphical details. All right. Time for some final thoughts here. The mark of a good experience, in my opinion, is when the experience you had virtually has some tangible, long-lasting benefits to your reality. And this goes for any experience really. It doesn't matter if it's a book, a movie, or a video game. It doesn't have to be virtual reality, is the point that I'm trying to make. But personally, even for leisure activities, I see my time as an investment, and I want that long-lasting value. In the case of Walkabout, I think it's about the connections you make, the bonds you form, the social aspect here. It's absolutely something that you can carry with you. This is an experience that I suspect can even help people who are socially challenged to participate in conversations and form those connections, both, interpersonal connections as well as neurological connections that they need to become better, socializers. And that's it. Walkabout is one of the best VR experiences out there. In my opinion, it should be available in every company, every school, everywhere for people to use. And it should serve as an example of what constitutes a great virtual reality product. Let me know in the comments if you agree or not. And most importantly, if you have ever swinged with friends in virtual reality. This is a safe space. There's no judgment here. Now, this was one of my first videos, and if you made it through all the way, that is just absolutely awesome. I'm really enjoying making these videos, and knowing that people enjoy them too definitely boosts my own enjoyment. So, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more XR industry insights, and in case that you didn't, send it to someone that you don't like. They're gonna absolutely hate it. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to unlink.